Buddha woosah. How to Weave Buddhist Principles into Dealing with Everyday Stupidity by Andrew Sholin. Introduction. How do we even get here? Stupidity bothers us because in most interactions, it compromises our sense of safety and is a hindrance to the outcome of our future. More so, it is a robbery of time when encountering what we experience as stupidity, be it in motion or action. Productivity without purpose is just motion. Chris Williamson. Time. Our most valuable asset. Leaving a conversation knowing you will never get that time back. Knowing that time of your life was hijacked like the employee of the month from Blackbeard's elite reconnaissance. The ultimate irony of stupidity is in the distortion of reality, where in attempting to conceive how one can view the world in such a way, whatever it may be, proving itself incomprehensible, makes our neurons drool and synapses rubberneck towards the wreckage, nearly escaping the very fate founded in distraction. A reflection into the pool of, that houses the ripples of stupidity is worth our time and analysis. P.J. O'Rourke's summation in Give War a Chance eloquently manifests this notion. Anyway, no drug, not even alcohol, causes the fundamental ills of society. If we're looking for the source of our troubles, we shouldn't test people for drugs. We should test them for stupidity, ignorance, greed, and love of power. I myself have had many struggles within the arena of stupidity. My primary career has been as a bus operator. For charters, you may ask? No. Well, then you drive a tour bus for a rock band. That must be quite an experience. No. Well, what else is there? I'm a bus driver for public transit. The petri dish that bonds the cells of stupidity into a homogeneous ooze that is inescapable and sticks to the sole of your shoe, nice and dummy. You may have noticed I use the word dummy instead of the descriptor gummy. That would perhaps generate familiarity with gummy. Sticky, gross. That is because in this occupation, I got to be the magnification within the microscope of this petri dish, having my soul smothered and my faith in humanity put into steerage with the feed being brought to a slaughterhouse. An experience not even worthy of sharing the space with the steerage themselves, but on a good day with the feed itself. This is the general public, you see. Throughout this book, you will hear the acronym GP, which stands for General Public, which is a simplification of an already simple concept, as the general public tries to do the same with all their might and falls short constantly. As you begin to learn of my unofficial study in human behavior, you will come to find these two innocuous letters stalking you like prey in your dreams. This would be an opportune time to give some background on myself, as up to this point I sound like a rather arrogant and entitled judge banging his gavel on the sounding block of hypocrisy. Maybe a better illustration would be a dark knight talking down their nose whilst gallivanting on his high horse named Confusion. I have a bachelor's degree in sociology from San Francisco State University. I'm a very empathic and compassionate person. In owning my own stupidity for integrity's sake, I took 7 years to get a 4-year degree. I like to think of it as National Lampoon's Van Wilder being more of an inspiration than a cautionary tale. Thanks, Bert Kreischer, for being the impetus for a writer's room to sit down and conjure up that masterpiece. A lot of people go to college for 7 years, uttered Chris Farley, Tommy, and Tommy Boy, met with the snide and correct response of David Spade, Richard. I know, they're called doctors. Well, hindsight is 20/20, and I was indeed a privileged upper-middle-class youth who intended to take full advantage of that privilege within my collegiate pursuit and tried to deter reality from injecting its spiky dildo into my unaccepting asshole for as long as possible. Now, it is important to note that capable, financially or not, my parents were very clear that I had 4 years and 4 years only to accomplish the task of graduating college, as they had done so themselves, and it was the prescribed timeline. Well, stupidly, I told myself, yeah, right, they'll keep paying on pursuing an education and mastering the art of thinking so I can become a productive member of society. Well, guess what, reader of whatever gender pronoun you prefer? I'd list them all, but there are more than 2 for some reason, and that is so stupid. I simply will ignore the rest of you who made up your own version of biology so you can be a victim and seek attention and validation from strangers. That is exactly what they meant. So, as I stupidly smoked away all the savings I had brought to college because weed was my first mistress and sashayed the dance floor of life with me for many years like I had 2 left feet and a peg leg, shout out Blackbeard callback, took classes aimlessly as I also stupidly went to college with absolutely no idea what I was interested in or what I wanted to do with my life. I was told to go from the age of 7, and so I went. However, there is light at the end of this dimly lit tunnel that was my cavern of stupidity. Those classes I took aimlessly did expand my consciousness. And those discussions I participated in as I retook classes forged the scope of my understanding of the world. I stupidly administered the monumentally misguided advice I heard along the way, in which I can't even place the origin of where I heard it. You can always retake a class, but you can never relive a party. Facts. Also, developmentally disabled in its real-world application towards anyone with a modicum of success in their deoxyribonucleic acid. Well, you live and you learn, right? It's not a mistake if you learn from it. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on George W. Bush. Fool me 3 times, and you have someone who actually thinks politics is important. It took a bevy and a host of my own frolic through the fields of stupidity to come to the actualization of self that presents you these vivid and visceral displays of vocabulary and absolute mastery of the English language. I mean, are you not entertained? My introduction to Buddhist principles was a lifelong pursuit I didn't know I was on. My mother was and is very spiritual. These notions of compassion were instilled in me from a young age, and not to toot my own horn, but I was born with a compassionate heart. My own pain, generally self-inflicted, directed my path towards these life lessons that were lurking in the rafters where I left to blow the dust off the boxes and held the shiny tools that redirected me on an uncharted course to paradise. I have seen struggle. I have lived it. I have combated mental health my whole life, being diagnosed as bipolar type 1 at age 20, being hospitalized 3 times in throes of paranoia and suicidal submission. I've sacrificed time working too much and missing most of my child's childhood. Been divorced, been broke, bankrupt. Well, you get the idea. I made poor choices, yet as I reflect, they are choices in pain necessary for growth. These mindset changes have changed my life, and they can change yours too if you let them, and moreover, if you want them to. As I read that, sure had a nice tinge of depressing to it, didn't it? The point is, we all struggle. Throw that smile back on your face, and we're going to lighten it up while we get back to the street lamp of enlightenment. I just want you to know you're not alone. Naively narcissistic, but you are reading a book on how to make it through the day-to-day. No judgment. I've been dealing with and thinking about this for a long time myself. So now that you're hooked, hang on and settle in for a life-changing ride on the choo-choo train of stupidity, where I will be the conductor and keeping it and your safety on the rails while we share a few smiles and relatability along the journey. I'll be citing from readings that lit my path to enlightenment throughout this furloughed fiasco, ending each chapter with my own poetry, which is how I normally write. Quotes from Jack Kornfield's Heart Wisdom Hour podcast, Duncan Trussell's Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, and Chris Williamson's Modern Wisdom podcast. A cornucopia of an explosive culmination in the masters of applicability and relatability, as Jack Kornfield is himself a certified monk, Duncan Trussell a protege practicing Buddhist and oration oracle, and Chris Williamson's enlightenment distills to the Buddha's smile. All 3 of these men have changed my life in ways I can only describe as existential effervescence. Literally changed my life. Breathe into an acclimatization of neuroplasticity where I have utilized ChatGPT for an outline structure for this book, as well as a research assistant for quotes, but every word bellowing into your ears is from the mind of yours truly. Buddhism itself is some of that help we sometimes need and are too proud to ask for. Just as with a character flaw correction, the enlightenment needs to glow from within. lessons learned in the application of tools learned to turn the knobs of knowledge properly and adequately. In the irrepressible lessons linguistically lobbed by Duncan Trussell, if you can forgive yourself, then you will no longer see the reflection of your own internal judgment in the faces of the people around you. And if you can do that, then suddenly you'll be in a whole different universe, because the universe we all exist in is the one where we're all so terrified of the judgment of our peers. Stupidity lets judgment dictate action. It is our backpack filled with unnecessary weight, and all we really need are the essentials. Let's take a hike then. Double knot those boots and come with me on a journey through a land of milk and funny. The Buddha woosah principle. There really is no time like the present, and through not only stupidity, but my own sorrow-building exercises that are ultimately life, I have found Buddhism to provide the most relatable and significant form of relief to stupidity absorption available. Within Buddhism is the key to maximizing our short and seemingly pointless, at times, existence on this dot in a quantum field that escapes the understanding of most simpletons. You see, Buddhism's door has hinges forged of kindness, compassion, empathy, sympathy, acceptance, understanding, and most importantly, love. Dom non quod non intelligent, which is Latin. Pretty impressive, right? For they condemn what they do not understand. Buddhism itself has for thousands of years been the toolbox that allows the nuts of the nutty to tighten and the screws of the stupefied to seat themselves. It takes a lot of practice, but so does anything presenting itself as a worthy pursuit. Within these principles are the 10,000 sorrows, a large yet little list of the struggles of life, kind of like how Reno is the biggest little city in the world. The 8 worldly winds that are the most relatable, a dichotomous dissertation that is the praise and blame, sweet and sour, darkness and light, sunshine and rain, gain and loss, grief and joy, that is life. The dichotomies that make an understanding of stupidity digestible. It is not in judgment that stupidity should be comprehended. It is in the circumstances placing various genetic, cultural, experiential, and innate resources at the right or wrong feet. Everyone has their place in this world, a benefit and a hindrance, just as the sorrows themselves illustrate, dilapidation in the fabric of the universe. There is a disconnect between unintelligence and the uneducated. They can be, but are not necessarily mutually exclusive. On their own, they are their own foes to be conquered. Combined into a concoction, they are catastrophic. How do we process this? After all, we mustn't forget Duncan Trussell's sage advice that following in another man's path is dangerous. Do what you're drawn to, not what you think you should be doing. Do the thing you're attracted to doing. That's what you're meant to do. That's who you are. This is accomplished with pause and stepping back into a non-judgmental place, allowing compassion to manifest itself in real-world practicality. This is the Buddha woosah principle. Breathe through the perceived stupidity and make the attempt in understanding that otherwise perpetuates negative universal vibrations and puts an anchor in the progress we can and want to see in the world. Every day, every second, you have the opportunity to restart and reframe your views on how you ingest the world. And as Gandhi eloquently put it, be the change you want to see in the world. There is no cost for entry. There is no membership, no application to be filed, just an adjustment in our own philosophies, in the film we put into the projectors that are our retinas and irises as they flip around for us and contextualize our experience. It takes practice. Oh my God, does it take practice. But the more one practices, the easier they find that settling into these adjustments is not only feasible, but beneficial for themselves and for others, culminating in a continuance of vibration ripples, not unlike the wavelengths of the universe that make all we see and feel. Part 1. Understanding the mind. Self-awareness. Chapter 1. What makes people stupid? What makes people stupid can be a real Mary Poppins mixed bag of upside-down emojis. A lack of access to resources proves to be most prominent amongst the various reasons. The reality is that some of us start this incarnation with a royal flush, and some of us with more jokers than a standard card deck should include. A flaw from the start, a glitch in the matrix. You see, it is true that ignorance is bliss, and that systemic barricades do present themselves among the reality of many. Now, how is this treasure trove of hurdles climbed over? Well, that is individualistic intrinsic. Are you going to be a victim or a survivor? Do you insist on attempting to wrangle concepts that escape your faculties? Or are you going to pursue that which you have a proclivity for? What interests, excites, relates to, and fulfills you? These are choices. The ego is a fickle bitch and doesn't really care what you think of her. As Jack Kornfield often exudes, the mind has no pride. Truer words have never been spoken. Spending a lot of time trying to corral the stampede of your thoughts, are you? You'd have a better chance talking a pack of starving wolves off a tomahawk steak. Maybe you're particularly persuasive or manipulative. Well, congratulations, you have cracked the code. Feel free to join the two others in a reimagined fortress of solitude where all three of you big swinging dicks can begin to repopulate. The logistics may find themselves violating the biological imperative, but you geniuses got this far and have all the time in the world to figure it out, so here's a drawing board and some chalk. Godspeed. For the rest of us that prefer realism to pessimism or counterproductive optimism, here's where we open our minds to adjusting our attachment to beliefs. What you were taught is normal is not normal. What you were taught is right, may be right for you, but completely foreign to another. Close your eyes and twist the Rubik's Cube of life and see if you get everyone to match everything. What you will find is you're going to peel the stickers off and place them as you desire, faking it till you make it, and subsequently compromising your own reality. This is ego. The unfortunate consequence of evolutionary biology that allows us to think we have been taught properly, and more so, that what we think is correct and justified as universal truth. Well, if that were true, we may as well join hands and waltz on the ray of sunshine, forming a golden bridge to La La Land. It's just as probable as all of us thinking the same and creating a symphony of idealism that palpitates and permeates the fabric of society. Having the awareness in oneself to know that more likely than not the paths our paths cross will not be like-minded. There will be similarities, certainly, but there will be more, if you were thinking, you wouldn't have thought that. Michael Squints Pallador's shortstop. A space where you meet in the middle, where and how you take the time to reflect and realize that maybe, just maybe, you've been wrong your entire life about something very important to you. Religion and politics at the helm of this rowboat in turbulent seas. This is where egos go to die, and where anxiety and frustration have themselves a nice, tasty murder-suicide. It is when we recognize we must leave those we find confused to their own devices to make it to the epiphany picnic we think we have the basket and blanket for, that we evolve. Within this is at least considering that there may indeed be a better way to go about what you've been thinking and doing than what you have been manifesting. Self-development and self-growth are the branches of this vortex tree, decrepit and crippled but firmly rooted. We can change. We can adapt or die. We can evolve together if you let yourself and let others take the time they need to come to their own conclusions. You can also shit in one hand and wish in the other and see which one fills up first in an effort for this change to present. Again, there are choices. And I'm not here to judge the Germanic oppression taboos you find appealing. Start with thinking, what are my beliefs? Why do I believe them? Why do others believe what they believe? Because you might actually be wrong, and they might be right, and vice versa. In combating stupidity, we must extend a Stretch Armstrong-like hand that is willing to grasp those in need of help. At times, this is recognizing someone and reaching out when their hands are in their pockets. Everybody can use a helping hand from time to time. Helping hand. August 19th, 2024. Philandering phalanges. Help is seldom given, and rarely asked for. What's more, is there is no reward. For most care you give, innocuous advice, changing how someone else lives, a footprint you didn't know you left. Head up, eyes forward. Now take your next step. A breath is sacred, on its way in and its way out. Inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. A shadow of doubt, a sliver of truth. Unknown uncertainty is the only absolute. Refute, refrain, love lost, love gained. Rugged routines make day-to-day, feeling same. But each moment is the reset for the rest of your life. Hide and seek, with where paths lay, a butterfly that transformed into a switchblade. Take a stab at that. Take it away, then give it right back. A helping hand reaches as it struggles. A gasp and a laugh. Helping hands intertwined in a grasp. Chapter 2. The Illusion of Control. Here's a fun life hack for you to pinball through the broken levers of your mind. A spring-loaded idea that just might bring that marble to your favorite flapper. You cannot control anyone except yourself. Bummer, right? What a world it would be if we could just A-B, up, down, left, right, start everyone into marionettes like we're playing Madden 98. Maybe artificial intelligence is well on its way to that reality, but it's not there yet. Agency. Not Jerry Maguire, not William Morris. Our own agency over what and how we experience, and even more importantly, tolerate as options, is entirely and totally up to us. Acceptance is what allows behavior adjustment to come to fruition, inseminating the neurons in a viscous glazing of intelligism. Well, I can feel you thinking, this is a particularly daunting proposition being posited. How can I think for myself? I was told not to do that. I was told if I live my life in accordance with a certain set of values, that something great might happen after I die. Then I might win? Perfect. You can enjoy flushing all your hopes and dreams down the toilet while you shudder in the void, wondering why you felt lost. I'm going to be over here living life. There's plenty of seats available. So what we think, how we feel, how we react is entirely up to us, and it comes with practice to make these things so. To lift the veil of ignorance and see the reality we want instead of the dystopian future that distracts us from what can be. This is accomplished in acceptance. You can change absolutely nobody except yourself. You may provide advice, whether it is solicited or unsolicited, preferably solicited for safety's sake. But in that implementation into the fabric of space and time, it is entirely dependent on said person's devices, deciding to pick up that advice and attempting to utilize it. What works for one does not work for others. As Cat Williams said, you can lead a hoe to water, but you can't make her think. A bit daunting, isn't it? What in the... Huh? Let me guess what you're thinking now. This sounds a lot like I'm essentially to shoulder the burden of humanity's prosperity like Atlas fucks Sisyphus, climbing the mountain of change amongst an icy, moss-covered vertical face and change myself? Am I hearing you right, Mr. White Knight and Dark Sunglasses author man? Yes, you heard that right. Change is scary. Change is challenging. Taking the time to change is arduous. Change is hard. You must watch Life's YouTube video on rewiring. Climb into your own mind and start unplugging, replugging, clipping conduit, a whole hodgepodge of trial and error. This does not happen overnight, as convenient as that would be. What ends up happening is you find a correct wire replacement without knowing here and there, and synapses begin synchronizing into a thought orgy with masks off and hats off. Just raw dogging reality into the conclusion that when you let go of control is when you actually gain it. Possess it. Obtain the illusion as you are the conductor of your life symphony. We must accept the slippery slope that you are essentially just a cloud of atoms that will eventually be aerosolized by time, as Duncan Trussell compendiously professes. In that, we cannot forget that we are humanity. We are one consciousness under a canvas of light that was born and died before it even reached our lives. Forget. August 13th, 2024. Some things you just can't forget, like staring at the sun and not seeing the sun set. Pink hues and purple completing the circle, rumination recoiling, memories flooding, pain overflowing. Suffering is silent. Strength somehow knowing the facade you must present, the side preferred for showing. Forfeit the forget. Acceptance steps from the shadows, a dimly lit lamp, burning awfully bright. Forget ending in a deficit of what you had and what is left. Buried in bereavement, take it. There is no leaving. Forget slithering slime, the smell of turpentine, a mask on, robbing you of time. Lessons learned and love lost. Life's risks, life's costs. Faded receipts on tear-stained sheets. Forget about strength. Just don't be weak. A losing streak, viewed from box seats. Forget about importance. The finish line, officially shortened. A starting pistol, the startle of a referee whistle. Time out! Forget a lump in your throat, a quivering case of a bitten Adam's apple. The more you try, the harder the grip. A boa constrictor constricting, playing catch, throwing a fit. Lessons learned in loss. Forget begins to fade. A freshly opened binding, the turning of a page. So when you can't forget, remember this. Thoughts are not feelings. Feel the gracious gratitude you get. Chapter 3. The Nature of Suffering, Dukkha. According to Buddhism, the root of suffering is neither the feeling of pain, nor of sadness, nor even of meaninglessness. Rather, the real root of suffering is this never-ending and pointless pursuit of ephemeral feelings, which causes us to be in a constant state of tension, restlessness, and dissatisfaction. Due to this pursuit, the mind is never satisfied. Even when experiencing pleasure, it is not content, because it fears this feeling might soon disappear, and craves that this feeling should stay and intensify. People are liberated from suffering not only when they experience this or that fleeting pleasure, but rather when they understand the impermanent nature of all their feelings and stop craving them. This is the aim of Buddhist meditation practices. In meditation, you are supposed to closely observe your mind and body, witness the ceaseless arising and passing of all your feelings, and realize how pointless it is to pursue them. When the pursuit stops, the mind becomes very relaxed, clear, and satisfied. All kinds of feelings go on arising and passing: joy, anger, boredom, lust. But once you stop craving particular feelings, you can just accept them for what they are. You live in the present moment instead of fantasizing about what might have been. The resulting serenity is so profound that those who spend their lives in the frenzied pursuit of pleasant feelings can hardly imagine it. It is like a man standing for decades on the seashore, embracing certain good waves and trying to prevent them from disintegrating, while simultaneously pushing back bad waves to prevent them from getting near him. Day in, day out, the man stands on the beach, driving himself crazy with the fruitless exercise. Eventually, he sits down on the sand and just allows the waves to come and go as they please. How peaceful! Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens, A Brief History of Time, of Humankind. At this point of the book, I'm convinced you must have had a diabolical resonance that has already changed your life. Well, thanks for the help opening the floodgates of change. There is a small catch to all this life reframing of the house that Hope built and then poured gas on, burnt to the ground, and then raised lumber prices while canceling your fire protection on your homeowner's insurance. That catch is suffering. Suffering, as much as we try to avoid it and do what we can do to minimize it presenting itself in our lives, without a shadow of a doubt is necessary. In fact, it becomes the very shadow you run from if you don't face it. Suffering is the eyes of the universal soul that you have a staring contest with in boosting your confidence as you teeter on the cliff of concern. Suffering creates the lessons that prove to be the guidance our lives require. Here's the problem. The lessons are like a ruler on the knuckles, but the ruler is a sledgehammer, and the actual implementation of where the lesson inserts itself into your life is like playing whack-a-mole at Coney Island, and there's one mole, and the actuator is slower than molasses in February. Find hope in Jack Kornfield's analysis that we can't stop the waves, but we can learn to surf. If all this wasn't sobering enough, it is typically our own expectations serving as the onus of this suffering. Neil Strauss declared decadently, "Unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments." This is intended to serve as relationship advice, and it is really, really, really good relationship advice. As is Jordan Peterson's, conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. So bring your girl or guy some flowers and serenade them with these actualized affirmations and get yourself some points and maybe a toothy blowjob. However, what we go through many days without stopping to think, or even better acknowledging, is the relationship with ourselves where these points also apply. Pointing the finger at all the external and forgetting there's internal screaming for help while it sucks on a cough drop trying to fight off laryngitis. This suffering is also known as sorrow. While I've been over here assaulting your ears, and while I sincerely apologize for getting to actually think, I'll apologize for the growth you might bequeath upon yourself as you step back and think, have I been doing this life thing wrong the whole time? Probably not. But you have been doing some of it wrong, because we all have. We all do. And that is the foundation of sorrow and the building blocks of suffering. But let's take a departure into my prodigal poetry and switch up and take flight into a bunch of words that rhyme. Maybe, just maybe, with a glint of hope in my eye, this becomes a speed read into what sorrow is, how sorrow permeates like a fog of fuckery, but more so circles us back to why it's necessary and what is to be gained. Relax. Try and not look so excited. Now you can't contain your excitement. Okay, here. Sorrow. December 7th, 2024. Sorrow. The feeling behind you when you think you're being followed. A river of tears that at a glance appears shallow. You can try and run from it, but sorrow remains a shadow. Felt in the presence of now, sometimes bleeding till tomorrow. It's one of 10,000, but everybody's got one. Life insists you take it on the ride like sorrow's riding shotgun. Try to put your finger in the barrel, only to find that it's too narrow. Thinking you can stop the powder before it bursts only makes it hurt worse. So you sit with it, but sorrow stole your chair. Breathing in the presence of mind, you find that sorrow doesn't care. An orphanage of problem children. Once one has found a home, another steps in. Sorrow's fiancé, breaking traditions on its wedding day. Something bruised, nothing borrowed, something old, that's nothing new. Sorrow loves gloom, but it's kind enough to let you choose. It can be removed with light, but returns when the clock strikes midnight. Hide and seek, nowhere to hide. The consequence is tainted pride. Evaporative confidence, starving, chewing on rawhide. The choice you thought you had, you already tried. Checking every drawer, nothing left to find. Could have sworn you looked everywhere. But sorrow's on the inside. The struggle it provides, found in the strength of your lies. A Chinese water torture test, just getting warmed up. It ain't over yet. Sorrow will be back in the morning. Acid baths and waterboarding. Sorrow the finish line that you just can't break through. Sorrow perched on the hands of time. Enough of the gloom. There is some good news. Sorrow's foe is acceptance. The lock with the only key that sorrow just can't get in. Close your eyes and breathe. Acceptance helps you to your feet. Cracking the code on these unsolved mysteries. In yourself you must believe. It is then and only then sorrow waves its white flag and then somehow concedes. So, there you have it. Now that we've solved all your problems, I guess you can just scurry off and live a perfectly productive life since you found all the answers to all your problems. There is just one thing before you go. A problem without a solution, still just a problem. On second thought, why don't you go ahead and hang out for a bit while we whittle our way towards solution land, where sorrow sits on the board of directors, but hope is the mayor. Part 2. The Buddhist Principle for Dealing with Difficult People. Philosophy Applied. Chapter 4. The Middle Path. Responding without reacting. Well, congratulations! You're still here. Made it through part 1 and we're just reading away your sorrow. See what I did there? We were just talking about that. My contention is that you can now see stupid, sit with the notion that you can't fix stupid, think what stupid is, why stupid is, and as we all know, stupid is as stupid does. Run, Forrest, run! Well, don't actually run. It is certainly preferable you hang out and keep listening because you're definitely not ready to change the world yet, and I need you here to give me validation. I never said I was a Zen master. I'm working on my stuff too. Pretty pleased with the cherry on top, and in doing so, help me help you. This is the deal, people. Connection. The loving awareness that fills the chalice with compassion and graces the grail of love is the exact goal we're trying to get to so we can unstupefy stupid, because that is how we make the seemingly useless useful. An observation I have made is that the association with Buddhism is a hippie with a gong and Birkenstocks who is able to forever and ever amen, shout out Randy Travis, smile in the face of adversity. Yeah, no. There are still challenges in the practice because you do have to keep practicing like Kobe shooting free throws. But it is recommended you don't practice being a helicopter passenger the same way. That was an extreme example. A smart man learns from their mistakes, and a wise man learns from another's mistakes. I presume you have understood enough of these words so far to be able to listen to this point without your brain Control, Alt, and deleting, and boy, am I proud of you! As it goes, you do still have to stand up for yourself to set the boundaries that allow your tolerance to tolerate itself. Let me hold your feet while you do a handstand and let all that I just said sink all the way into that big old brain of yours. We good? Good. Intolerance is itself acting on animal instinct to let impulses tiptoe through the tulips of our mind's deforestation. You see, Jack Cornfield's reminder, the mind has no pride, strikes again. But it has a mind of its own, and we must mind fuck our own mind. Tear that Trojan open and strap up, because your mind is dirtier than a $2 Tijuana hooker. You know it, and I know it. I'm no exception. I see you tapping your watch, waiting for that last STD test result to come back. Know why I see you? I'm in the waiting room with you. I took the hypothetical Hippocratic oath, and nothing I'm saying about you is exclusive to either of us. This is a shared healing experience. I'm holding an oar in this boat that we're all rowing just like you. A solution to the intolerance in lifting the anchor that is tolerance into the boat itself and realizing we all do stupid things. Let's join forces and turn that beefy chain on that anchor into fish line and abracadabra that anchor into a fish hook. Mistakes are not mistakes if you learn from them. What have we learned, class? Nobody? Nobody's raising their hand? Whew. Okay. That's okay. This is dense stuff. A good pause can impede the bullet of intolerance to be blocked with the force field of tolerance, like Neo making bullets stop and then drop and make the sounds of shells hitting the ground, even though that's not actually how bullets work. You never thought about it, and honestly, I didn't either until right now. Like I said, shared experience. The GATE students in front of the class might have noticed I just mentioned pause, but that is in Chapter 7 according to the contents, and we're on Chapter 4. Neo? If you could do your matrix presentation real quick, I'd sure appreciate it. Pause allows the impulse control our limbic system would rather us forget to be cock-blocked. Sexually frustrating, but gratifying in the end. Let's foreshadow with some foreplay. Gotta let loose a bit, right? I know you're just chomping at the bit from that last poem. Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because we're going to play with the man in the little boat, flick the bean of Chapter 7 a bit, and ease into pause and its benefits, because we really need to drip dry the concept. This is why pause is important, and while it took me quite some time to actualize until writing this poem, I had not provided myself with the perspective I hope you find in these words. I did find them. And we can again skip a few steps and learn why pause promises hermetic hope with some more words that rhyme. Pause. June 9th, 2024. It is once in a great while that we take pause to awe in the wonder of a child's smile. Rats racing, police chasing, speed dating. Pause takes a back seat. Sitting next to you is impatience. Tapping your watch, waiting, foot shaking, deliberation, back to basics. So busy that we barely breathe. Take pause. Enjoy silence in the sunshine. Notice the trees. Prick your pores with the thorn of a rose when you get so close to smell it. Open hearts open the world. Yet stimulation in survivor mode sets our settings to selfish. Kindness costs nothing. Instinctively scoffing. Never bothering to say, "How are you?" before we say, "How much?" Bucks get clutched. Gotta make your own luck. Trained to rip your heart off your sleeve. It must be kept tucked. Pause isolates in the slick bricks of a 6x6. Being heartfelt becomes heart-sick. Claustrophobic kindness among the prospect of profit, looking for profits for guidance, blind leading the blind, never ending, on a treadmill. Always on a climb. Reflecting in a rearview mirror, pain escapes the soul. Within a single tear, love lost, left lurking. Factories refractory, formulate forging fear. Pause out of reach. Life's heat masquerading as a refreshing oasis. Let's face it, anxiety is ease. Purpose pursuant to the evolution of a southwest breeze. Luscious life lessons, found in a breakdown, after hours answer-seeking upon broken knees. Pause providing cover like ground covered in autumn leaves. Voiceless voices with laryngitis. No one hears the screams. Sanctity lost. A movie screen of unhatched hopes and dreams. A seamstress is left seamless. Bubbles boiling as streams override the importance of an actual stream. Pause floating by, grasping for hope along the banks. Barricades blocking meaning. Lost hopes committing truancy. tyrants in a fortress of bricks made out of beans. Weak, weary, and wasted, seeking a post used for leaning. Pause, certainly circling the chum as a shark prepares for feeding. Manically maneuvering, throwing blows, endless attempting at undoing an undue chokehold. Pause, providing security, navigating between slings and arrows, desires endlessly echoing, temptation dancing in a ring of fire, an expensive cigar burning slowly, lit by a cheap lighter. Pause disguised as a financial advisor, finger pointing at everything except oneself. Introspection's invitation, underneath yesterday's newspaper. Concept vanishing like magic ink. No one doing themselves a favor. No nurture in nature. Pause begins to bend, calling out for reinforcements, an email never sent. Pay attention if you can't pay the rent. A penny saved is a penny earned. Count every single cent. Remove the veil of ignorance. Cleanse yourself with rain. Pause is picture perfect. A sponge to all the pain. Happy now? Is that better? Yo comprendo, vato? Good talk. See you out there. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So stand up for yourself. There is a balance to be adjusted and calibrated amongst the scales of life's justice. Generally unfair and seemingly and ironically unjustified, realism is a much easier pill to swallow than both unfounded optimism and overcautious pessimism. Next stop is our now well-rehearsed mindful recital. No need for stage fright. Fear is a barricade. If you can remember anything from this roller coaster ride of vocabular vascularity, remember this. Operating your life in fear of what might happen is not living. Chapter 5. Mindful listening. Stop talking. Start listening. Huh? What? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something. Listening is an art that the GP do more of a finger painting with. Stupidity hears what it wants while thinking about what it's going to say next. True present moment awareness is an exercise in mindfulness and in active listening. This skill removes the anxiety of coulda, woulda, shoulda, where a proper response can be conjured and a proper analysis of whatever situation you may be in presents itself. If you want them to know who somebody is, just let them talk. They'll tell you. Tracy Morgan. This certainly proves to be its own challenge, as for most of my life I have been dubbed King Overtalk, the one who oversees all unnecessary communication. Over time I have taught myself active listening, which, in its essence, is a primary component of mindfulness. The dictionary definition of mindfulness is the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something, and a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment, while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations, used as a therapeutic technique. However, in its practical application, it is heard. Get it? This is a chapter about listening. Decoded as, listening is an attitude of the heart, a genuine desire to be with another which both attracts and heals. L.J. Isham. Perhaps a more concise conceptualization is found in the wisdom of lessons learned from Freda Felcher. She said something about me not listening or something. I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention. Harry, Dumb and Dumber. It must be understood that because someone is listening doesn't mean they're hearing you. This is a big distinguishing factor. The battles with GP are constantly uphill and require their own finesse to really wing the takeoff of change into the ether. So you may ask, how do I keep my motherboard, known as my mind, from short-circuiting in a Mountain Dew-drenched drowning of mouth-breathing magnitude? Great question. Mindfulness in its proper form carries with it loving kindness. This is a compassionate spirit that serves as a beta blocker for GP tendencies. Everyone is going through something, and everyone has their pros and cons, their benefits and blunders. Try not to focus on the cognitive tug-of-war that is encountering the stupid, and focus instead on the struggle the everyday must be for them, and how fortunate you are to not share the same fate. It must be a challenge not drooling on yourself when your mouth is salivating with stupidity. Meet them with grace and understanding, with unconditional compassion. This is a way to live mindfully. Certainly, it is conceptually contained within a progress, not perfection model made of huffed airplane glue and spare parts. But the true practice and implementation of mindfulness holds this true. It is a test filled with answerless and poorly worded questions that someone spilled coffee on, but a test important to focus on all the same. Be mindful of your judgment and consider your analysis may be a hypocritical hurdle where you create the same impasse that you are trying to whittle down within your GP engagement. A real head spinner, which can make your neck ache from the Linda Blair-like reenactment that is most of life's lackluster lessons. To maximize the pursuit of your ears compendiously concocting into a neuron-rearranging elixir, the task of active listening must be activated. If you live in Tornado Alley and your double-wide keeps getting whisked away into the stratosphere, it would be advisable to not live there. When you're buying a home $250,000 below the national median home cost, and someone tells you, yeah, that's because it's in Tornado Alley, that would be a good time to listen. If you can't pay the rent, pay attention. The impediment to culminating active listening lies in the fact that most people are ask-holes. They ask for advice, but don't take it. This requires a stringent stride into acceptance that is Buddhism's uniform conceptualization. Acceptance is the answer to all your problems today. Eckhart Tolle. Maybe this Tornado Alley analogy didn't resonate. How about we double down for Destiny's Destination? Maybe you're a fan of a team that is playing the Las Vegas Raiders. You just love the team so much, you tell a confidant that you're going to wear that team's favorite jersey to the game. You're met with the unfortunate response, that is a terrible idea. Those people are nuts. You wear the jersey and proceed to get belittled, blemished, and befuddled. Potentially, actual physical harm is inflicted upon you about a game you have no control over for a team that doesn't even know you exist. You see, knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens. Jimi Hendrix. Well, you might not have been listening. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? It's like rain on your wedding day. Sorry. Lost myself in my inner Alanis Morissette for a second there. But in this analogous accommodation, the proper advice was given. Sometimes, a lot of the time, taking advice when clearly conveyed sincerely is in your best interest. It is indeed amazing how joyful the outcome can be when thoughts are met with, don't do that, acceptance. What we haven't discussed is how you listen to yourself. How self-talk and what you hear from your own echo chamber do indeed bountifully bounce through eternity and into your actual reality. Let's take a few wild ideas that people woke up one day, thought, acted on, and then cried themselves to sleep in shame behind the bars of a rumination dungeon. If they didn't, they should have. Remember when cancel culture was a big thing? When placing judgment on someone about something they had done in the past or one misspoken turn of phrase concluded with a mob mentality of removing them from society? Great use of time and energy, everyone. Well, the wonderful minds over at the Stupid Factory thought that was necessary for Pepe Le Pew, a fictional cartoon character. Yes, you heard that accurately, and your eyes glazed over into a misty mystification correctly the first time. Someone woke up, said, that cartoon offended me. My fingers are jittering even attempting to convey this level of maximized stupidity. I want them to apologize and say they're sorry for what they did. Oh, excuse me, baking powder? Wayne Campbell, Wayne's World. I thought you said you wanted a cartoon to apologize. Well, suck me sideways. Stanley Ipkiss in The Mask. We're going to have to hire a stupid translator to properly articulate the level of pathological persuasion needed to bring this one around. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? That's Spanish for why. Again, I'm like really smart. Why in the ski mask cloak of attempting to make a difference is this important? Would you like another example? Well, closed mouths don't get fed, and you get what you ask for. The answer is always no if you never ask. So yes, why don't we? So we can say we did. In Marin County, way out in the Patchouli Palisades of Fairfax, California, there lives a high school named Archie Williams High School. Sounds like any other school, right? A school named after someone nobody really knows about. Well, just a few years ago, it was called Sir Francis Drake High School and is located on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. One day and one wildly liberal agenda. Again, I do not care about politics, but this is a manifestation made out of Tiva sandals and whale sounds. The good people of Marin County decided they were offended by the name because Sir Francis Drake was a pirate and kept slaves. So they changed the name to Archie Williams, who had been a teacher at the high school way back when and had quite a positive impact on the community. Way to go, Archie! Here's the problem, though. The street is still named Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. The problem is not exactly solved. So we're again going to take our judgment journals out of jurisdiction and make sure we have an issue. Yes, it is not good that he owned slaves. I'd like to hope you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who thought slavery was a good idea. There are a few states right in the heart of the Bible Belt, the irony is infectious, that did, and even fought a war about it. Remember that? No? Well, it happened, and the flag that represents that cause was until 2020. Yes, 2020. Still etched in the state flag of Mississippi. And a whole bunch of people who think they know what it stands for like to poke a flagpole through the rusty floorboards and fly it from their truck that's painted 3 different colors. I digress. That's the thing I do. If you haven't noticed, I'm a big digression guy. Just stay with me here. Sir Francis Drake owned slaves, and that is definitely bad. Well, newsflash for those who touch paintings to see if they're real. Shout out Joe List. So did almost every president on every partial cotton piece of currency we hold so dear to our hearts. Why don't we take all the money out of circulation too? I mean, it's offensive, right? Judgment in something about who someone was a long time ago, when it was normal to accept to think what they did, who was also dead and had no impact on the fabric or space continuum any longer, is a significant misuse of time and a counterweight to progress. Gather around the woosah well, and let's toss a coin in for good luck while we have a tantric temper tantrum and O-face into catatonia. You know what else we did as a society? We removed Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street because he was mean. I thought the point of Sesame Street was a nice remedial introduction into the various struggles and personality types that entropically envelop the world. Well, on second thought, that does make sense, because there are no mean people. Evil does not exist, and Kumbaya is the anthem of the world now. Set your stupid settings to stupendous, because all of this together forge a slimy slope of stupidity that defies physics, and you are going to land on your face every time you fall, no matter which way you trip, trying to traverse the face of Mount Moronic. The point is, all these people who have these thoughts listen to themselves. Take a step back and do your best to remember Duncan Trussell's quantum breakdown. You are essentially just a cloud of atoms that will eventually be aerosolized by time. Aerosolized might be the best word I've ever learned from reading a quote. Just so you know, crisp is my favorite word in the English language because it sounds like what it is. However, as Daniel Tosh pointed out in one of his masterfully done comedic specials, poop makes the same motion from your lips when it comes out of your mouth as poop does when it comes out of your anus and is pinched by your sphincter. Let's not hinge too much on crisp. It being my favorite word is the point. You've been listening long enough. You did a great job. I'm so proud of you. Let's collect ourselves and come over to Compassionville with me. Yes, you can go pee first. You don't have to raise your hand. Before we move along, why don't we cleanse our palate with a little more poetry? Steps. November 16th, 2024. Steps taken in the night. Rhythm coincides. Nothing but moonlight as a guide, and the spirit inside. It's not a failure if you tried. Existential simulations, confusion, aggravation. Scientific method, dioramas, demonstrations. For it's the knock you've been waiting for. Open up. Let them talk first. Pay attention. Listen to what the universe is saying. A foul is only flagrant when its intent is malicious. Maelstroms, timid tornadoes, hailstorms, hurricanes, tossed around something vicious. But pain is a portal. Every tale has a moral. Virtuous signals, look them in the eye. Just stay cordial. For in that next step you might get everything you asked for. Hard work, discipline, and self-control are innate of themselves, their own reward. Stop keeping score. Don't procrastinate. Just do your chores. Unfold your soul. Corner by corner. That's it. You're getting warmer. Scars are tattoos with stories. Reminders of what you thought was once torture. Life's boring if you know your fortune. Breathe. Let it in. You don't have to cheat. This test? The answer lies within. Chapter 6. Compassion without tolerance for toxicity. How you doing over there? Need a break? Go ahead. Breathe. And break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar while you snort Kit Kat crumbs. That's better, isn't it? Wait, did you breathe? Because if you didn't or haven't, we're going to end up huffing air like a true American being forced to rise from their rascal and walk around Disney World. Nobody has the time or strength for that. This would be a toxic oxygen mask to subject ourselves to. We now need to flip that mirror of self-reflection around and investigate the abysmal abyss that is accepting that there are evils in the world. Souls made of radioactive waste, glass shards, and metal shavings. The compassion we need to possess to access the change we want to see is not without boundaries. The path to compassion is a winding road paved with potholes, spikes, and misplaced rumble strips. A real Mr. Toad's Wild Ride of navigational notoriety. The compassionate heart pauses to assess toxicity. The rational mind loves to be irrational. Again, Jack Kornfield's go-to, the mind has no pride. So we all have to be therapists without graduate school training, internships, real-world experience, and a whole salt shaker of salt. The GP require much more than a grain. More of a salt shaker of pink Himalayan sea salt, the size of the Himalayas, being twisted onto bonsais and Bodhi trees by the Jolly Green Giant. Fee, fi, fo, fum. You might be asking, how have you experienced toxicity to tell us in this how-to of boo-hoo what the correct path is? The road you just described sounds more like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde trench, where we hold our rifles above our head and shoot hope bullets at enemies with our eyes closed. Well, I can certainly tell you a thing or two about toxicity. I was in a 14-year relationship where I was married for 11. Please, and rightfully so, focus on the was in that, because toxic we were. Toxic I became, and so she. Into a toxic water slide with no water in the fallout pool, because no good marriage ends in divorce. Louis C.K. Our relationship started out amazingly. We thought about each other constantly, couldn't get enough of each other. I basically moved into her house because I was 24 and living with my parents at the time, and she had her own place, and it seemed like her proverbial shit together. It was like a Hallmark movie with the soft Little Mermaid music substituted for TLC's Red Light Special from time to time. Don't get me wrong. We turned that red light on and the volume up as well. You know how your boy gets down? Well, don't actually know, but of all the complaints I receive regularly as a grounding reminder that I am not a Zen master, I'm putting up Hall of Fame 400 numbers in the sheets. That's 4 out of 10. Pretty consistently comparable to tales I've been told. Then again, toxic people do like to lie, and maybe my 30-second thunder and my best friend 2-pump chump are lost at sea in the motion of the ocean. Anyway, actions speak louder than words. And I'll take the general convulsion claymation visions of my psychedelic misanthropes to be a real pat on the head. Yep, that head. Wait, what? Yeah, I mean, whatever head you were thinking. You see, the heart wants what the heart wants. And love is blind, so most of us slalom through a slope of red flags, magically poofing them into pink or even green, when it was just the sun hitting them the wrong way. As I prefer to put it, it's hard to see red flags through rose-colored glasses. Love's not stupid, but it is dyslexic. Silent and listen are the same word, just misspelled. Sci-Hi the Prince. As my main man Duncan Trussell divulged, love is a word that has been hijacked by greeting card companies, cult leaders, sentimentalists, pop singers, false prophets, rom-coms, McDonald's, and a million other unsavory types, who transform the most incredible thing that humans can experience into an inflatable, gaudy imitation of itself that they use for their selfish desires and nefarious marketing campaigns. These bastards have made the highest and most intense experience accessible to humans almost impossible to talk about without feeling embarrassed. Well, douse Wesley Snipes in bleach and call me Passenger 57, because that is a toxic vantage point of love. Toxicity's heart is the disappointment others present to us, and thus it is in that love that toxins boil, bubble, toil, and trouble. This 14-year love where I was given the greatest gift of my life, that is my son, did not maintain throughout. It fizzled, and we drifted apart in a sea of toxicity that shrouded itself in fog. A toxic cauldron of my unconditional love and her very conditional love. However, Chris Rock and dropping the existential knowledge that he does, only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally, whereas a man is loved under the condition that he provides something. Chris Rock and Tambourine Man. I'm not going to hypocritically precipitate the runoff of accountability onto a one-way street. I, too, was culpable, and what I did not do was implement any boundaries for toxicity to absorb itself into a sponge of any size. This resulted in a painful and challenging divorce that was one of my life's biggest struggles, but more so in the distancing of my relationship with my son. A relationship, regardless of romance, parenting capacity, friendship, you name it, is constantly in flux. Anybody have Doc Brown's number to have some maintenance on my flux capacitor repaired? No? That don't matter. We cannot change the past, and the realistic, epiphanous elegance that presented was a figurative anchor being cut off my leg. That anchor has since become a fishhook, and the grade 6 chains that once held it are now very flexible fishing line. Now, I must learn how to fish and go sit on a dock with my son while we remember what happens in the meadow at dusk. Huh? Exactly. Compassion is knowing that our decisions are investments we make into our future. And the more ruminative and deep of a thinker you are, the more you need to make decisions for your future self, not yourself now, as Chris Williamson confidently conjectured. There is more to toxicity, though. There are those we think are our friends who are crabs in a bucket pulling us back to their menial existence while we try and climb. Chris Williamson continued his affectation in the profound, when you're on your way to the top, everyone roots for you because you remind them of their dreams. And when you're at the top, everyone tries to tear you down because you remind them of what they gave up on. This is toxicity in a nutshell. No! This is me in a nutshell. Help! I'm in a nutshell. How did I get into this nutshell? Look at the size of this great big bloody nutshell. What sort of nut is this? This is crazy. Mike Myers, Austin Powers. What a long-winded way to get to a realization most people experience, Mr. Listen to My Book. It's full of introspective invitations. Well, now we are at the stupid part. Along that 14-year relationship, we had fallout arguments annually. That's every year, if there's still any GP thinking they're not GP. I'm taking full, that's it, I've had enough, I can't do this arguments. There was a strain put on our relationship after my son was born that was a consequence of what's not in the baby books. You see, after a child is born, your partner, who is generally your number one for however long beforehand, becomes number two, and vice versa. We became Apache helicopter parents, stupidly not having a date for 7 years to remind ourselves how we got to this point of our path, and made excuse after excuse in doing so. I take just as much accountability because the realest stupid mindset there is in a lack of accountability while the finger is pointed in all directions except at oneself. Well, at this unspoken drift that anybody with a child would have told either of us, appreciate it. Thanks for the heads up. We decided to really step up the stupid when the COVID epidemic of 2020 reared its ventilator ventricle of a black heart. How did we step it up? Oh, we decided to have an open relationship. Well, what do you mean? We discussed sleeping with other people and then pretending to act like we were married, removing all sanctity. And let me save you the suspense. That decision, it's not a two-way street. The women's movement really gets to show its progress when point and clicking your way into a sexual scenario. Not so much for us fellas. I just want to sear all this flavor in. I am just as accountable for the culpability catastrophe that this was. We sat down, had an adult, what do you think conversation, set rules, and in a barrage of stupidity, thought that this would fix our marriage. I mean, who isn't shaking their head or scowling with disapproval right now? If you're not, give yourself a good old GP pinch and splash some smart water on your face. Here's the crazy part. The resolution to this sorrow is in love. What this abhorrently poor decision ultimately translates to is a change in love. We were in love at one time, but that love changed and became a shared love for our child. The fairy tale had been over for a long time. And we stupidly tried to put a square peg through a round hole. However, as Jack Kornfield reminds us, whatever your difficulties, a devastated heart, financial loss, feeling assaulted by the conflicts around you, or a seemingly hopeless illness, you can always remember that you are free in every moment to set the compass of your heart to your highest intentions. In fact, the two things you are always free to do, despite your circumstances, are to be present and to be willing to love. Ultimately, the toxic that enters our lives forces us to learn what we don't want, and boy, oh boy, is it easier to find out what we do want. This is necessary sorrow. In fact, dedicated Buddhists actually pray for sorrow so lessons can be learned as pain is an impartial teacher. In entering the apothecary, which concocts the elixir we seek, and utilizing these prayers, we heal and remove toxins by transforming them into lessons. The 7-layered prayer allows us to acknowledge lessons we can learn in sorrow and also shows us how to implement the principles we have established thus far. 7-limb prayer. 1. Prostrations. Your minds of wisdom realize the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the ear ornament of the fortunate. Your beautiful bodies are ablaze with the glory of the renowned. I prostrate you to whom to see, to hear, and to remember is so meaningful. 2. Offerings. Please water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, lights, scented water, and so forth. A vast cloud of offerings, both set out and imagined. I offer to you supreme field of merit. 3. Declarations. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind I have accumulated since time without beginning, especially transgressions of my 3 levels of vasi, with great remorse I declare each one from the depths of my heart. 4. Rejoicing. In this degenerate age, you strove so much for learning and accomplishment. Abandoning the 8 worldly concerns, you made your leisure and endowment meaningful. Protector, from the very depths of my heart, I rejoice in the great wave of your deeds. 5. Request for Dharma teachings. From the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion, in the space of your enlightened minds, venerable and holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast and profound dharma appropriate to the disciples of this world. 6. Request to remain. May your Vajra body create from the purity of your clear light, free of the rising and setting of cyclical existence, but visible to the ordinary viewer only in its unsubtle physical form. Stay on unchanging without waning until Samara ends. 7. Dedication. Through the virtues I have accumulated here, may the teachings and all living beings receive every benefit. Especially may the essence of the teaching of Lama Je Tsong Kappa shine forever. Toxic. December 31st, 2024. Toxic. Being told that disapproval is somehow useful. Toxic. When passive-aggressive approaches play on repeat. Toxic. Pointing out this tiny stain on an otherwise perfectly clean sheet. Toxic. Wrapped up in the intrusion of gossip, where you let others control your mind and dwindle your emotional profit. I'm doing the best I can, but most of the times, my best ain't good enough. So it's easier to simplify and simply take another puff. Transitioning to regression, perhaps absorbing life's hardest lesson. There's people I've tried to, but simply can't let in. Taking my back just a few weeks to Thanksgiving. Thanks a lot. To drive 9 hours with a hurt back and a hurt child. To be met with judgment and be told you don't like my style. Put my parenting on trial? Like there's a right way to do it? Making me explain myself without recognizing the confluence. I had to be a man before the bar mitzvah. Dad's at work, mama's crying. Who's going to watch my brother and sister? Oh, and while we're at it, let's throw this in too. You suck at sports. We'll still show you. Better get good at school. Being told, come on, let's go, get your shit together. Aggressive motivation is what Mom usually said. Well, the hypocrisy hobbled, and she passively crawled back into bed. It's not okay to be depressed, unless it comes to me. Doesn't take a genius to read that's textbook victim mentality. But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Generational trauma. Too many glasses to choose that now she cannot see. But it has always been there, a beacon of hope and a pillar. All you need is love. And stop judging your children. Toxic. Feeling loved when there's no love lost, except the price of admission is a soul stole. See, that's the cost. Wrestling in the ring of now what to do. Parents getting older. Do I take the time we have left and consciously remove? That's the last thing I ever want to choose. But if nothing is going to be good enough, I've got nothing left to lose. Except my pride. And me properly raising my youth. Guess I'll just have to sit with it while I bend these blues. Don't have to decide right now. There's still time for the theory to be proved. Allowing the unraveling and an accepting misunderstanding. Guess I'm just sitting on a board of shitty city planning. Chapter 7. The Power of Pause. Mastering the Breath. Well, we made it to woosah, a land inhabited by sighs and oofs. How many times per day would you say that you have to sigh into your next step? Remind yourself to breathe. Be forced to breathe through an experience because the stupidity is such a sensory overload, you reach into your primal quiver for an arrow of hope. A lot. Yeah, I know. Welcome to enlightenment, home of the red pill. They always told me ignorance is bliss and blue is my favorite color, but you know me, always going against the grain. The good news is breathing is actually the solution, the way. It is always accessible and is actually a key for the lock of overstimulation. Now, please be sure not to slip on the GP drool pools formed by apoplectic mouth breathing and window licking. It is not just simply breathing involuntarily that provides solace, but a focus on the breath. Duncan Trussell reminds us what happens when we blow our own minds and let the noose of knowledge cascade around our esophagus. He, Tesla, was 84, and he died in a hotel, completely broken alone, in love with a pigeon. This is a nightmare. I'm in hell. This is hell. I'm talking about Tesla in my puke. Tesla was the electric Jesus. I can't breathe. Well, boy, oh boy, if that doesn't resonate, perhaps now would be a good time to go back to the beginning of the book and restart. So, how do we do this? What does focus on the breath look and sound like? We can begin with the physiological sigh, which is not unlike a sigh of relief from your most recent GP interaction ending. It adds a component of conscious complexity. Inhale through your nose until your lungs expand out just as far as you think those little cilia can bend, and take one more sip of matter into your little schnoz. Let that air out slowly through your mouth like you're blowing bubbles of clarity. This is scientific. What happens is a parasympathetic nervous system response, literally recalibrating your emotional imbalance in real time. The body is controlled by the autonomic nervous system, comprised of the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Let's hit it with a little caveman breakdown. Sympathetic, good. Parasympathetic, bad. When you're over there pulling out what little hair you have left while explaining the simplest of concept to GP, only to be met with a blank stare and long-winded blinks, that's your parasympathetic trying to scurry away. What then do we do? Physiologically sigh our way through life? I don't know about you, but I could simply breathe that way all day in an attempt to add a couple IQ points back from the brain cells that were put in the GP safe deposit box down there at, savings and loan. What we do, everybody, is meditate. Not to be a grave duty as Jack Cornfield employs, but a calming of the mind in a centralized building block, so the physiological side becomes a tool rather than a necessity. Thus, in loving yourself, calming your mind, centering your soul, you make way for the GP tolerance we seek as we how-to our way through the cornfields of Jenny's farm on our way to her doomed double-wide. The hardest part of all this is that it is in loving kindness the real GP resolution revolution occurs. Accepting and reminding ourselves that everybody's trying. We might not see it. We don't have to. But we can believe that. We need to believe that. We should believe that. Find time each day for yourself. It does feel daunting when we're trying to corral your stampede of thoughts, but this only takes a few minutes. 5 minutes with your eyes closed, your heart open, your breath being coddled. I implement a trick where I give the breath words. I inhale what I can control. Exhale what I can't control. Then inhale acceptance. Exhale what I can't control. Inhale the time I have, and you guessed it, exhale what I can't control. You are smarter than the average bear. Look at us all connected while you're reading my mind, because I know you were thinking it, deducing my patterned prophecy into the reduction. I think I know where you're going with this. You see, we don't need to introduce Kokoro ni Tsutsumi into this. Kokoro ni Tsutsumi is the Zen practice of waiting to be chosen, kind of like the guys waiting to get into the fight clubhouse. That Tyler Durden was a real stickler, wasn't he? Very picky guy, but I respect it. We can mold ourselves into interdependence when we ground ourselves in meditation, when we align our own wavelengths with the wavelengths of the universe, because it is all connected. Newton's third law is everything has an equal and opposite reaction, and it sure does. We can get into the second law of thermodynamics, but as the conductor, I need to keep this train on the tracks. Suffice it to say, there's a whole host of science that really likes coinciding with Buddha's principles, and more so, with confirming your importance in this inconceivable universe we're floating in. Let's condense this into the concept we ended chapter 4 with. Breathing allows us to deal with and ideally remove the fear of moving forward with our lives, the fear of living. Take a chance, go with your intuition, think outside the box. Do not let fear control your path. Fear. November 7th, 2024. Fear, the guardian at the gate of your fate. blood dripping from the braid, laughing, while the memories fade. A beast off the leash, fear sneaks and bites. A boxing ring with no ropes, fighting for your life. Fear is the plug connected to an electric fence, ending your freedom before it begins. So let fear stand in your way, or take the chance. Cheat codes get you nowhere. That's why it's hard to advance. Level up, or taste disgust. Rewritten lyrics on a lipstick-stained napkin next to a dirty cup. Fear loves when you've had enough, when the next step is timid. Fear wants you to think it's sure that it was. Fear spooks you. Both hands at 12, clocks that go cuckoo. Fear is what makes boys men, what makes life worth living before it ends. Fear is what ensues when courage defeats. Goals within grasp, fear pulls out of reach. Don't let fear be your guidance counselor. Cross-multiply, cancel out. Send sunshine your way, so fear has a shadow of a doubt. Fear is the past and the future, so live your life now. Chapter 8. Loving Kindness. Metta, Meditation. How we doing there? You okay? Are you breathing? I mean, we literally just talked about this. Metta is what it's all about, folks. The culmination of correspondence that is what we are trying to accomplish here. Metta comes from the Pali language meaning benevolence, loving kindness, or friendliness. Metta is not attached to love based on desire, but selfless and boundless compassion. In attachment, we find anxiety. We find a loss of control as we try to gain it. The GP hold on to this like a toy that they don't want to share in a toddler-like tantrum of mine, gimme, stomping their feet into a swirl of tectonic trepidation. The more we meet this soil, shattering shimmy with unconditional love, the more positive vibration reverberated through the universe. Sounds like farcicality, but it is indeed the case. This is certainly not perfect. It's not something to be mastered. What it is practice, not perfection. A goal to strive towards as best we can, and wonderfully, a process that allows for constant resets. The rebirth of our presentation of the universe is as accessible as the breath we just discussed. We can reinvent ourselves within each moment, gaining traction as we assuredly slip along the way. That's okay. You're okay. And guess what? It's okay to not be okay. Just be. Metta Bhavana is the systematic meditation practice of developing this loving kindness. The very rebirth of each moment we shudder in rumination about. These adjustments take time, maintenance, awareness, and energy. In turn, turning a frown upside down in a real-world capacity. The very qualities of metta are unconditionally ubiquitous, bouncing with boundless buoyancy, climaxing with compassionate composure, and arbitrating into altruistic assurance. Each breath we take is a death and rebirth, an inhalation of life and an expulsion of what we don't want internalized, a wave in the ocean, careening towards shore in an ever-changing, never-replicated state, its energy having surged through the seas beyond the horizon to culminate at our feet in the sand. One footprint, our own footprints as we carry the GP with the strength we were given, getting the stupidity from one place to another so it can dilute itself among the salt air, providing us the strength to help. Fold those legs up all crisscross applesauce. Jump around, jump up, and get down. I prefer Indian style, but here we go again in stupid land, making a mountain out of a molehill and finding that horribly and terribly offensive. What? Are we not talking about a yogi sitting like a yogi? A little help here? Duncan Trussell has a great meta breakdown. Learn to see that it is not things that bother us, that we go out to bother them. See the world as a mirror. It is all a reflection of the mind. When you know this, we can grow in every moment, and every experience reveals truth and brings understanding. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, I didn't say it better myself. Duncan said it. I'm saying everything else. Oh boy. I hope you're following and more so smiling. Take the time to give yourself an enlightenment epidural and rebirth yourself into a stream of serendipity. Rebirth, November 23rd, 2024. A breath to give, a breath to take. A positive from a negative, a lesson learned from a mistake. Life is a series of birth and death. Seasons change, sweeping the leaves that are left. Hearts beat while you dance in the street. Rain singing, bells ringing. Out of place sounding the alarm. That's where you belong. A counterstrike that starts a fight. Fingers interlocked, love pressed in the middle. The reset of a refreshing sigh. Only in your own mind can you recalibrate. Hesitation hides in the corner. Happy to take the time you waste. Distracting from your own goals, breaking your back while trying to break the mold. Nobody knows where the story goes. Pitches painting the corners, flinching. Picking at the tape, at the edges of your life while the story unfolds. A lamp swinging connected to a creaking chain. Blown by the winds of sorrow, lit with the oil that blames. Shadows from the wick of the flame, flickering pain through the pains. Nothing left to lose, everything to gain. Labor breaths and blank checks. Pressure of the struggle you hold, forged in your fist to place in your palm, the wisdom you get. Universal chances, mantras and chanting. Fairy tale wishes, endearing and chanting. Forever, never lasting. The weight of the world on your back. A few coins in a purse. Different deaths, different cycles. Each day is a rebirth. Chapter 9. The Art of Letting Go. Letting go is a big one, so grab those reins and hold on tight as we traverse the counterintuitive. GP prefer to get thrown off the horse and then dragged by Black Beauty through a cornfield, backwards. Ouch! Taking the action of letting go is actually where control thrives. Yep, you heard that right. Go ahead and give it a second chance. Action is the antidote to anxiety. You're not afraid of the future when you're moving yourself toward it. If you feel anxiety creeping in, use it as a trigger to lean into action, not stagnation. Do something, and you'll feel better. Chris Williamson's Twitter. Letting go is the hardest and easiest thing we can do to heal and let the GP pieces move about life's chessboard. Everything has its place. Everyone has their way, and everybody is on their own path. We feel claustrophobic at times when we periodically share the path with Jerome Bettis, and Jerome Bettis, those alongside us, out of the way just to get one quick physiological sigh in. Wow! That is one hell of a callback. His nickname was the Bus. I'm a bus driver, remember? The meaning of life is hidden among speed bumps and tucked well within potholes along our path. Go to the light you see. When you seek it, you will see it. Just make sure it's not a radioactive bar of uranium Homer Simpson dropped as it travels through Springfield or wherever you may be. Duncan Trussell strikes again with his Buddhist breakdown that life is a process of constantly letting go. You heard the man right. Constantly. Float away like Charlie and Grandpa Joe after they stole fizzy lifting drink and levitated into the wall of no hand or footholds because there's nothing to grab onto. Grandpa Joe. Burp your way down back to earth before Gene Wilder scolds you and up and outs himself in the glass elevator alone while you watch the candy chemtrails drop candy rain. Shout out Soul for Real. To hide your tears. Goody, goody gumdrops. We are really gaining ground on how to hold hands with the GP and then slingshot them forward in a strategic roller derby of dummies. You can only control yourself. Do not attach yourself to anything or anyone. This includes your own parents, children, lovers, partners, friends, careers, cars, houses. The list goes on and on. Everything falls into place when you let go and let the pieces fall. After you take a lap around the block, you come back and see where everything fits while you bang on a conundrum. What we ultimately find in letting go is what we were holding on to was never ours to hold in the first place. It is a bitter challenge that is very hard to taste the sweetness of, kind of like a shot of apple cider vinegar, but life vinegar. We try so hard to control what we can't that is the root of anxiety and depression. Anxiety from refusing to accept we can't control most things, and depression when we are forced to let go against our will. There is such a sense of urgency with most things that we rush right past the good stuff into the thunderdome of tenacity and lose ourselves in the moment, missing the present and only adding to the anxiety we are juking in and out of like a Barry Sanders highlight reel. Insert Deion Sanders, Walton Payton, Marshall Faulk, Marshawn Lynch, or Bo Jackson as a replacement as you see fit. Where this really comes into play is with the people in our lives. Nobody likes to be alone. And we all have varying degrees of attachment and commitment disorders consequently. The dissociative derivative of a calculation of me plus we. People come in and out of our lives for a purpose and for an unknown period of time. The only certainty in life is uncertainty. It is our projected timelines being led astray like a dog off a leash that is so disorienting for us. Our children grow up. Relationships end in the unexpected or in the sorrow of death. Death is the hardest form of letting go. We don't have an option, and it is a sobering reality to be faced with. Keep in mind that death occurs every day, but so does birth. Perhaps the simplification that the death of one is a tragedy, but the death of a million is a statistic, provides some perspective, making the pill easier to swallow. We can wrap our minds around the interpersonal, the interdependence we have depending on someone. At the end of the day, no matter how we slice it, the only person we can always truly count on is ourselves. It is not selfish. It is reality. It can be overwhelming. It is the ultimate sorrow, as the very notion can make you feel so alone. You're never alone. We're all connected to each other. It's all connected. Your blood churns with the evolution of your ancestors, who sought the same meaning we all struggle to find, and instilled in us without even knowing or stopping to think about it. The lessons we are to learn in letting go, holding on to our beliefs, seeing those pieces fit, and finding their hidden meaning. Hidden meaning, June 23rd, 2024. False prophecies, false hopes. Truth secludes among the chitter-chatter. Fat cats that look like Garfield and only get fatter. The fact of it is, the truth of the matter, deception is still communication. Good luck climbing the ladder. Glass ceilings made of Tiffany crystal. Humble beginnings end with being bashfully boastful. Until the day comes that you wake up and don't even know you. Self-division, submerged in sacrifice of the pain you actually grow through. Prosthetically promenading within a shell that is frail. Self-imposed prisons, but there is no bail. So meaning begins to prevail. One last puff to be the wind that will move the sail. Claustrophobic chaos that lacks fortitude. Life without purpose that lacks gratitude. Yelling in the mirror, confused how someone could be mad at you. Timidly tiptoeing thresholds of the door you choose, or you must go through. Purity percolating into innocence lost. Holding out a hat, staring at the ground. Non-substantive thoughts. Become your new boss. Tragedy trudging tenaciously. The price for a soul. Clearance prices. Just lowered the cost. A kayak at sea and the paddle's been dropped. A hurricane named disarray, pages stuck together while turning to the next page. No more breadcrumbs on the path that you walk down to find your way. A home stiffened with ash, congruently conferring with which side's your good side. Satan's devilishly handsome and loves the last laugh. Arthritic grips, clutching for one last grasp. Function furiously forming, your most basic task. That meaning is found in a scar above your brow, or the stitches of sorrow in a promised tomorrow. The pulpit of presence whose knowledge is borrowed. Perseverance leveraged in a form of collateral, meaning behind a two-way mirror, not knowing what's looking back at you. Played in hide-and-go-seek with agony and defeat, war waged on the weary, the meek, and the weak. Collapsing in a fortress of solitude, meaning peeks through the blinds. A broken compass guiding across the map of the mind. Fishing for answers, feel a bite, something caught on the line. Whimsical wisdom wandering through the passage of time. Experience, your best teacher. Limit lurking outside the confines. Meaning is earned with interest rates that add up to a dime. A white-collar criminal committing one final crime under a welcome mat, meaning a rusty old key. Age-old questions, dusty books ultimately manifesting that what meaning means? Hard times come and go. Head up, eyes forward, squint against the wind. Each day is a checkpoint to once again begin. Struggle is undefeated, so fight for the win. Smile in the face of adversity, an iron fist and a strong chin. Meaning coming out of hiding, cautiously creeping towards curiosity. Hearts absorb. Soak it in. Chapter 10. Dealing with family drama. Last call! All aboard the SS, here we fucking go! Families are complicated. Family drama is inevitable. It is a universal truth that we are confined to the shackles of, be it in disapproval, a feeling of neglect, political differences, habitual scab-picking arguments, and ultimately in miscommunication. All of this is particularly stupid. Family is who you can count on in mounting the insurmountable, which would be the aforementioned contentions as they seep into cracks as epoxy sealing fate. They are those who rise to the occasion when nobody else will. When cries for help come out as whispers. They are the ones who are there when nobody else is, and most of all, when they don't have to be. You may recall my scurry of stupid decisions and choices discussed in the introduction. Well, my family has been there with me through all of it. A crutch on a limp that was there from an injury I inflicted. My parents and my siblings are amazing, to put it very mildly. However, this is not without its generational trauma, which again is universal to all families, and moreover, is a consequence of evolutionary biology. My grandfather was a very successful businessman if you judge success on financial outcome. Personally, I find success in positive evaluations others give, particularly your employees, if you are of entrepreneurial ilk. Well, are you ready for a wonderful jaunt through generational trauma? My grandfather's story should not be met without accommodation. He grew up on a pig farm in Nebraska and left for World War II on Christmas Day when he was 17 years old. Nobody helped him, as was just postulated in my opening paragraph of this very chapter. He was sent to Catalina Island off the coast of Long Beach for boot camp and referred to it as paradise. For a kid who had never even seen the ocean and was staring at corn stalks their whole life, I don't doubt that it was indeed paradise. He settled in Stockton, California, where he sold life insurance and ultimately cars. He was really good. Like savant level good, as in both categories was top salesman in the state of California. He parlayed this ambition and admittedly Midas touch of fortitude into purchasing Green Ford, the dealership he worked at as said salesman. Most salesmen were selling 3 or 4 cars per week. He was selling about 10 per day. A particularly manipulative fellow, which is a great quality to have if you're selling, well, anything. This became an empire, with multiple dealerships, hotels, shopping centers, and as one of his employees' sons once told me, half the land in the Central Valley. So, now you're probably chewing your cheek wondering, where does this stupid Buddhist stuff come in? Well, let me take you on a little tale of woe, shall we? Where are you going? It's over this way. The year was 1993, and my parents had purchased a brand spanking new Ford Explorer for my grandfather because, one would assume, If your family is in the car business, that's who you buy a car from. You would indeed be correct, but you would be extraordinarily wrong in assuming the benefit that you might be. One day, my mother is speaking to the fiancé of our babysitter at the time. I'm the eldest of 3 children, and while able to care for myself, not able to do so legally or confidently at that point in time. Small talk ensues, and he asked my mother what she paid for the vehicle, which is a reasonable question when evaluating an ever-changing marketplace that is the automotive business. Oh yes, by the way, he was the used car buyer for a local Ford dealership himself. My mother tells him. He responds with, "Really? I could have got you a better deal than that." In a moment of chin-scratching fervor, my mother gives a ring to the salesman at my grandfather's dealership, who then informs her that that was not the invoice pricing that he had generated, and he had sold the very same vehicle the day prior for less himself. Reasonably so, he follows up with my grandfather and asks him, "Why would you sell your daughter this car for more than you would someone off the street?" Are you ready for this? Don't want to lead you down the path of despair, but there is absolutely no way you're going to avoid it with this one. My grandfather's response is, "Well, if you can't fuck your family, who can you fuck?" Wow. I mean, in a rare moment, and I recognize this is indeed a book, there are no words. Okay, author boy, what's your point? I've not seen anything Buddhist or uplifting for a while now. The lesson here, the principle to implement, is in letting go. Holding on to a cloak of evil of this magnitude is one wild ride you do not want or need to be on. I'd rather take a spin in Santa's sleigh after the reindeer get into the catnip and mescaline. There is added harm when it is inflicted by those who ideally are to love you unconditionally. While my grandfather was successful in the eyes of those who didn't have the inside track and thus their view blocked to the pitchforks and emotional human sacrifice rituals serving as a border, he was impossible to please. Unfortunately, the list of these emotional offenses go on for what could be its own book. The greatest and grandest of them all, wonderfully ironic as he was my grandfather, get it? Is that while passing with a net worth of 9 figures, yes, we're talking $100+ million, he left nothing to any of his grandchildren or great-grandchildren. He was basically the love child of Scrooge McDuck and Mr. Burns. We were all sitting on a winning lottery ticket that we cannot and will not cash in. However, amongst all this disapproval and palpable dismissal, we have one of the most important principles of all lying before us. The principle of forgiveness. If we are to carry around burden, misunderstanding, or expectation we place on ourselves that we generate from others, particularly our family, we are indeed doing ourselves a grave disservice. Holding that resentment in your heart is an emotional atlas stone that need not be placed. Forgiveness is the strength that allows it to be removed. Forgiveness, not to family, but towards anyone who you feel has done you wrong. As Denzel Washington told us in He Got Game, you need to get that hatred out your heart, boy. And boy, was he right. In that, and to share with all of you, Pops, I forgive you. We have an attachment and a deep-seated innate inclination to please our parents, to seek their approval, and feel purpose when we receive their approval. We have the same in seeing our children thrive in guidance. Let us not forget fur baby people who don't have children and push their dogs in a stroller and call them their kids. It is so delightfully delusional. It's almost like being tickled, isn't it? Well, you don't know what you don't know, and that is their reality. But it is another dimension of stupid that you have to crawl through the upside down of Stranger Things to get to. You see, practice that is so difficult to implement is in letting go of attachment. We have no ability to affect the outcome of how our children turn out, or in receiving disappointment in the disapproval that may be itself a misinterpretation. All we can do is love unconditionally. Integrating this concept of loving kindness and present moment awareness to all the components necessary for the gears of a family to move. This is the override switch to family drama, and the concrete for the foundation of a healthy family. No family would be without drama, and the families that fall apart are those that allow dry rot to develop. They ignore the termite report, voiding unconditional acceptance and real unconditional love. I've been very fortunate to receive unconditional love along my path, and that is not to say there was not tough love, mingling with the meandering of the manifestation. The thing about tough love that must be understood is that it is tougher on the parents than it is on the child. The hardest part of parenting is sitting back and watching your child make mistakes or even fail. You can provide all the guidance in the world, try and clear the path of bramble bushes and snakes, but they need to get bitten a few times so they can learn their own lessons. The best advice I've ever received on parenting is, your children will probably not follow your advice. They will follow your example. Meet that pressure, be it indirect or direct, with love and understanding, with what could be construed as disapproval as those who probably do know what's best for you, simply wanting the best for you. Pressure is a two-way street. It is under the thumb and the thumb itself. Pressure, January 21st, 2025. Judgment's shadow lurking, great at making the picture look perfect, but the picture's only perfect on the surface. What are you talking about? So many have it worse. True story. But it doesn't change this pressure that feels like it's about to burst. Let me give you a little perspective. We can meddle a bit. Because the strength in my biology is of innate intelligence. You're reading scripture to get to the lessons that you get. I'm turning a pen name with pen game, taking every chance that fits. Mama's forgetting we talked about usually within the hour. See, white privilege explained is it's all disapproval until you have all the money and the power. This isn't Scarface. This is real life. The soul tends to die before the body. So most people, they die twice. Oh, that's nice. Decadently dancing with despair. Nobody ever told you this life was going to be fair. Expectations lost like infanticide. A mother's guilt within a father's pride. A face with a smile while you cry inside. But it's all right. I'm fine. It's fine. We're good. Forever words are not favors. Never lead with you should. See, struggle exists from a mansion to the hood. We all got to rise up and brass knuckle our fists, a custom grip, and a well-trained plea to the fifth. I'm calling my lawyer. It's the only call that I get. Keeping score with the Ouija board. Ghosts in the castle. Boo, all you want. They're coming back for more. A dormant doormat and a knocker rusted shut. Swirling in the maelstrom, trying to keep your head up. That's pressure. The final test is a final lecture. Got to put your face on for the crowd. Your family name is in danger. A spray painter and an easel made of hope. Pressure cooking dinner. Writing you a love note. Passive aggressive. That's the way that's a healthy parenting directive. I suspect I get less with a misstep. Misogynistic motives. Pressure petting the Cheshire cat. A sword in the stone, shining like chrome. Anxiety presenting when you're finally alone. In the zone, the friend zone. It's where I seem to want to be. Because they get close, but I don't let them get close to me. What's this supposed to be? A Rorschach test that looks like regret? I've been laying in bed but can't get destiny to lay down and manifest. So I digest, chewing antacid until I'm spasmatic. Spontaneously combusting, pressure's coming. That's pragmatic. Back asswards, starting with the last chapter, trying to move slower, but time is moving faster. The ladder you can't see the end of. Daddy, please get the moon for me. While I'm up there, pick out a few stars. Because I really need to believe that love is not lost. The scale of choice is not miscalibrated when calculating opportunity cost. Because my star chart is made of dark thoughts. And that's all. Walls closing in, doors shutting, and then the windows fall. How can you have it all when you're losing the grip on the rope, and the rope you are holding is the only rope that you know? Sorrow's fine, but struggle is the mind's best invention. Thinking it's ascension, but you're actually descending. Strict descendance is known as generational trauma, so I'm thankful for the struggle and the promise that there's never tomorrow. Writing Sanskrit in the sand, acting like this is my whole plan. Searching for problems in every spot that I stand. It's hard asking for help. Pressure reminds us we could all use a helping hand. Chapter 11, Workplace Wisdom. The workplace, where high school restarts and then never ends. Gossip is an evolutionary trait. The vast majority of human communication, whether in the form of emails, phone calls, or newspaper columns, is gossip. It comes so naturally to us that it seems as if our language evolved from this very purpose. Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. I have had the whimsical pleasure of navigating a room of gossip for the last 14 years of my life. Well, essentially forever. This has been a reality of every workplace I've ever been in. The problem is gossip becomes its own cataclysmic carnage. A game of telephone where the reality that is being faced becomes dissuaded into a dystopian worldview, or should we say work view, where what should be a collaborative effort and unity becomes despair. I have a union job. I take pride in having a union job. The issue with union jobs is typically people are in a union and refuse to be united. As I often say, and I mean it, a lot of GEDs in the room. This is more of the same when it comes to GP, but it sure extends into my cohorts in a breadcrumbing leftover stew where there is nothing to slurp except existential dread and regurgitated cream corn. Gross. This takes us back to Acceptanceville, USA. Population, not enough. A bouquet of misconstrued belief systems that intersect at the corner of what the hell are you talking about Avenue and which way that-a-way. If I could print Duncan Trussell's words on a t-shirt or even tattoo them on my forehead, I would. I probably could. I'm gaining more and more forehead space every day. You have to begin to ask yourself which components of my belief system are things that I arrived through naturally from my observation of nature, and which parts of them are placed into me by a system that is designed to turn people into consumers. And think more often than not that a greater percentage of your personality is not you at all. It's a tapestry that has been cleverly woven by a system designed to make people feel totally normal, spending the majority of their lives in a commute and working in a shit job and being tired all the time. The real issue with the gossip engulfing me is that it etched into a complaint model that mirrors nothing. Imagine a room full of people complaining about circumstances they can change, but do not. It is at times particularly maddening and utterly depressing. Soul-sucking, really. If we let everyone decide for themselves how they were best fit to benefit humanity with no restrictions at all, how could they possibly end up with a distribution of labor more inefficient than the one we already have? This is a powerful argument for human freedom. Most of us like to talk about freedom in the abstract, even claim that it's the most important thing for anyone to fight or die for. But we don't think a lot about what being free or practicing freedom might actually mean. The main point of this book was not to propose concrete policy prescriptions, but to start us thinking about arguing about what a genuine free society might actually look like. David Graeber, Bullshit Jobs, A Theory. Well then, why don't we talk about freedom? The notion we are in control is rarely absorbed into the sponge of knowledge, when in fact all we can control is ourselves and situationally our circumstances. The decisions and choices we make are the construct of the path we lay before ourselves. Many times, most times, we lay in rumination about a choice we could or should have made, But the reality is we never actually had a choice. The wrong moves we made along the way are insertions from the universe to guide us down the path we are to be on. This is never more evident and present than when siphoning time at a job you were not fulfilled in. My father once told me, "This is what I do for a living. It's not my life." This is a great way to handle the suffering of a job that is dreadful, which is most people's reality. However, what we resist persists. Acceptance in the choice you have made amongst the realization that there is a purpose for that choice ultimately, and albeit not timely, is a wonderful epiphany. A clarification of a conundrum that confounds. Make your own steps towards change, logically, rationally, and in jest. There is no reason ever to feel trapped in circumstances you can change. It is in the patience toward change that we find what is necessary for growth to gain ground in laying down the path and turning on the lamps to allow you to see within the darkness. I've learned much about life through the human interactions, both in the break room and upon the buses we all operate. There are many tales to tell from this woosah introducing occupation, and without acceptance, there's a nice padded room and a straitjacket on hold. If that's what you want, well, that is a choice. I prefer to learn from the lessons life has given and not resist their teachings. Life Lessons, June 18th, 2024, written in the break room. I have bathed in lava and danced in a ring of fire. I have loved more than myself, sacrificed for my desires. Tapped out my submissions, forwent what I was missing, constantly learning from a distance. A cavalcade of mistakes we make. Rapturous shame. The stiffness of a wiggling finger placing the blame. Forces running wild, no whip to tame. Momentary glimpses into dissolving wishes. The lost grasp that was once held in hand is Mr. and Mrs. What I am told is that which does not kill you makes you stronger. I'm patiently waiting for patience. Can't wait much longer. A clock with no hands staring into the abyss. Shots that look like bullseyes, turns out that they missed. Thunderous hits as a drum met by a fist. The gasp for a breath, as if the last left. A dinner party of excess. Red lipstick and a black dress. The wrinkles of fortitude formed by distress. Rigid reinforcements recoiling, frigid water, somehow boiling. Life lessons leaving guesses, a treasure hunt of fresh beginnings. There are moments that feel like losing, they're really winning. Actions deciphered in judgment, be it prosperous or sinning. It is in minimal wants that vast wealth is found. A hand grazing in freshly cut grass, gliding across the ground. Deafening silence made as titans clash, yet do not make a sound. An engulfment of senses draping over shoulders, embracing and constricting, resilience pursuant to manifest in the whole it begets. Infinity multiplied, added to the depths of forever, provides but a glimpse of a task or an endeavor. Comparison is the companion that is the thief of joy. Procrastination that is paranoid. Last licks, last laughs, leaving nothing to fill the void. Overflow with love, laughter in the pages of the next chapter. Confidence rattles amongst the clatter. Inside, the answer is found with the blank canvas of a blind eye, a deaf ear, a silent cry. Sifting soulless soil, contentment a contention to conclude the turmoil. Acceptance masquerading as a mannequin, force-fed the importance of ethereal etiquette. No finish line, no safety net. Flipping a turnstile of negativity into enthusiastic entrances. Light is to be found no matter how dark it gets. Tango in the entanglement between pressure plates, multiple choice tests. Love, loss, despair and hate. Energy restoring and energy that wastes. Conclusions coinciding in the culmination that to get rid of these must be met with artillery. Hellfire missiles with tragic trajectory. Answerless questions that propagate guesses. These are the continuances of each of life's lessons. Finding inconsistency in each of life's stresses. Switches for emergencies that heave hesitation and depressing. It is not how hard life hits. Teeth get knocked out, blood gets spit. Life lessons of lost consciousness. It is the speed with which to rise. a springboard of spontaneity, a smile in disguise, a helping hand that pulls you up, resting, weary, gripping gratuitously, existentially enlightening in the epitome that you are enough. Softness in a shell, callous and tough. Life lessons lay among blades of grass, counting stars, deciphering clouds. Simplistically soaking in a sonnet, picturesque presence of a present moment. Life's lessons are seldom obvious. Seek not for them. They will emerge with obligation as the puzzle pieces to importance. Life lessons is explained experientially, a horizon inverted vertically, as far as the eye can see. Chapter 12. Handling public conflict. Strangers and online trolls. Oh, how titillating. A chapter all about GP. Just when you thought we had weaved through the weeds and swung through the vines like George of the Jungle, here we are in the cranial carnage once again. This would be a good time to double-check your tool belt, strap it on extra tight, and hook on some fail-safes using dollar store duct tape and zip ties. Before we dive in the shallow end of an empty pool, that is GP, and the conflict we encounter every day with them, in case you forgot, that's like the whole point of the book. Let's revisit what it is in our quiver while we are quivering in suspense. The full utilization of the principles discussed are necessary to traverse this transition. We have reviewed loving awareness, loving compassion, tolerance, acceptance, forgiveness, suffering, sorrow, grace, removal of expectation, and pause and understanding. We're going to need them all to turn the reel on the bendy fishing pole of public conflict. Overt sarcasm really takes the wheels of public conflict to a grinding halt like 6-piston caliper disc brakes on a Ford Pinto. Before my illustrious bus driving career, I worked in a really big box retailer for 5 years. They sell wares that allow homes to be repaired and remodeled. A depot for such transactions. I have full faith you can pull together what this place is. Here's a fun inquiry I got more often than you would ever believe. I would be asked, "Do you think this would look good in my bathroom?" To which I had enough frequency to out-of-office auto-reply, "I don't know. I've never seen your bathroom." Oh, the look of clarity in the eyes of the consumer postulating such a proposition. The sarcasm swirled into the ice cream cone of stupid that is inherent and is this prophecy really cushions the blow of conflict. It removes the conflict before it starts, with the reality check based in reality, where the GP rarely visit. Kind of like a family reunion in Oakland. As we go through life, we find different ways to deal with the public. Moreover, removing conflict from the public. If you remember anything, remember this. Only answer the question asked. No additional information. None. A yes or no question gets a yes or no answer. The least information given for clarification for the GP, the less potential conflict ensues. You can opt to try otherwise and find yourself in a nice tumultuous twister that could have been a nice autumn breeze. The least amount of words possible, as our kids like to say today, say less. Does anyone here know where they come up with this stuff? I mean, every generation has their outlandish slang, but buns, fire, lit. Somebody get these kids a fire extinguisher before their hot crust buns. They're 1 a penny, 2 a penny, find a penny, pick it up, a nickel's worth of free advice, a penny saved is a penny earned. Oh my God, where am I? Who are you? Are we still in a book? Are you still listening? Wow, how enriching your life now must be. Perhaps it is most advantageous for us to summarize what we've learned so far into 3 simplified concepts, a rule book, a reference guide of sorts. The 3 rules of GP wrangling are: 1. Heart. Meet all people with loving kindness and compassion. Always. It takes a lifetime of practice. It never ends. 2. Listen. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Pretend you're a kid and get that wonderful, shut your mouth, there's grown folk talking energy about yourself. 3. Think. Before you respond, Breathe in intelligence and exhale the stupid. Or at least sort of try. Any valiant effort is appreciated. How easy was that? I mean, come on. It's not even the earth, water, wind, fire, heart that brought Captain Planet around. By the way, where did they get heart from? It's not even an element. It's an organ and a metaphor for caring. I mean, they already wanted us to summon a climate-changing crime fighter. What the hell do you want from us? Anyway, I prefer my usage of heart, so why don't you knock over your nostalgia shrine and put this book there instead? I'm not saying pray to this or make it gospel, but the world would be a better place if we could all bring just a little of this together. Whatever we do, let's make sure we don't give up on each other. We are all a result of a 1 in 400 trillion. Yep, 1 in 400 trillion. That's a lot of zeros. Chance of being here. When Papa's swimmers go bobbing for Mama's eggs. Keep that in mind when trying to find your patients, because even the most mind-numbing GP are lottery winners, not unlike yourself. For perspective on how much 1 trillion even is, let alone 400 trillion, 1 million seconds is 11 and a half days. 1 billion seconds is 31.71 years. A trillion seconds is 31,709.79 years. We can't lose hope. It's not over. We can fix this. We're not done yet. Boom! Leads right into this chapter's poem. God damn, I'm good. Not done yet. July 14th, 2024. Trudging tenaciously through turmoil. No, we are not done yet. Beauty at times minimized, slowly fading in the falling of a sunset. The convention of chords chronologically chanting as a symphony of love, echoing, shaking hands of people we have not yet met. Transgress, gratitude, palms pressed. Stress invites distress and deep rest. Demonic distractions of dementia, consistently forgetting to decompress. Slaying experience, life that is life's conquest. Sign up for the marathon in each and every contest. Hold nothing back, unwavering in the confessions to confess. Not always at, but striving to be your best. Life's a strategy, highly suggest you play chess. Running on fumes, nothing left. We ain't done yet. Let your love profess, caress, and undress, permeating the palpitations of a shallow breath. Perseverance is the key to success. Only you can stop you, but we ain't done yet. Marvel in the mastery, the light of life is refractory, rapturous rainbows reveling in hand-drawn prisons that cannot take your mind. Put your retina to the prism, adversity a given, but friend becomes foe. You gain the freedom of life when you let go of control. Success not defined by dollar signs, but shapes of cloud in the sky. Tears of joy, tears of pain. Stained glass, stained by pride. The purity and the innocence of a child asking why. The acceptance of the moments when you're just getting by. No rule book, no manual, no how-to guide. Change perspective. Simply tilt your head to the side. A fast pass, a ticket to an endless ride. You do or you don't. There is no try. Let the goalpost be moved. Allow yourself to run in place. Lackadaisical lessons of haste making waste. Of the impetus of impulse. Fall behind in the race. The shadow of a podium where you hide from the chase. No mistakes, just pass. Taking you where you're supposed to be. Live a little. Take a gamble. Place your final bet. Until your eyes close forever. You were not done yet. Chapter 13. The Fool's Reflection. When you're the difficult one. Well, where do we begin with this? All this time we've been pointing at the GP, blaming them for all our problems when part of the problem might be us? Wait, are we circumstantially GP? Are all of us taking an at-bat at the T-ball stand of stupid from time to time? Oh no, it's true. Everybody has their moments in the GP limelight. The servitude to stupid that we all end up in the net in at one moment or another. In my case, I'll blame the drugs. You can blame the drugs too if you want. Remember, this is your brain on drugs. Well, let's drop a couple hits of acid on those sunny side-up eggs and sizzle our way into a bent finger that is pointing directly at ourselves. Our habits can be their own form of stupidity. Values ingrained in a board of generational trauma and taught behavior. How we are raised is often how we view the world, and changing those vantage points is very, very challenging. Even once we hire a licensed mind electrician, you have to have a full revamp orchestrated and get the rewiring wired. The option to still blow a fuse remains. If a fighter prepares for a fight with extensive, in-depth, intensive training, they must still enter the octagon and utilize those skills in the fight itself. Well, this is the fight. A battle amongst our own minds on how we solidify the liquid of stupid and reduce it into a decanter of dilapidated delusion. There are only so many ways to skin a cat. Is there? How many ways? Who skins cats? We do have innate temperaments, personality traits that can double as conflicts, not unlike the public conflict just discussed, within our own minds. There are a lot of different people in this world, and seeing eye to eye is a silly putty stretch on a newspaper nobody reads anymore. This brings us to a place to remind ourselves of tolerance. In reminding ourselves and everyone is trying. Maybe not their best, but they are trying. We can try to understand while we reason with ourselves on what emotions might be coming up the pass. When we identify emotion, we teach ourselves tolerance. Being able to place an emotion in its proper place, step back and look at it, and realize our outlook might need adjustment is insight. It is insightful. Insight drives us in a better direction, in a more proper way towards the wisdom that is intuition. The reality here is that not everybody is for everybody. There are people who make your life better and people who drain energy. As Duncan Trussell calls them, energy vampires. Energy vampires. We need to give all of this grace. We need to give others grace, but also ourselves. In understanding ourselves in a way that we do not get complacent, that we are always growing, always trying to better ourselves, we reach the precipice of human connection and interaction. When we make ourselves the best, we in turn become the best for those around us, for those we choose to spend time with. We must build ourselves up so that we can also build up the support system surrounding us. This encouragement is the telomeres of human existence, the bonds in our shared DNA and our shared experience that makes life worth living. There are so many facets to this faucet of self. It is very challenging to recognize something wrong within ourselves. It is even more challenging to change it. But it can be done. It's done every day. In the reflection pool of self that is both a rear-view mirror and a two-way mirror. Progress, not perfection. That which we resist persists. When we are looking for change is not when we find it. It is when we are adjusting our mindsets and consequently our own minds that the intake of the world around us begins to grow and change. Myron Golden has put this in the most eloquent and understandable terms I have ever come across. It is GP-free and thus perfect. Golden said, "A tree grows in two directions at the same time. It grows down, that's the root system. It grows up, that's the fruit system. So the part of the tree, the nature of the tree that grows down, is the gravitropic nature of the fruit. Gravitropic means it grows towards gravity and away from light. The part of the tree that grows up and produces fruit is the phototropic nature of the tree. It grows away from gravity and towards light. The problem most people have is they love the phototropic nature of trees, of success, and have a fruit system that everybody can see. They don't love the gravitropic nature of preparation and having a root system that no one can see. It's the stuff you do when nobody can see you that makes you worth looking at when somebody can see you." Elite Tribe YouTube channel. I mean, come on. How does it get better than that? This is the tree of life defined. It is the answer to the universe's most existential crisis that is the search for self. Stay planted, stay firm. Hold your ground, and be who you want the world to see even when nobody is watching. This is how you gain kinetic energy to be potential energy. This is where momentum originates. Perfect poem lead-in. Let's go. Come on down. You're the next contestant on Damn, This Guy's Good. Momentum. July 4th, 2024. Gotta keep moving. Life. Get some. Momentum. Acrimonious animus. Adversity and adversary. Failure's birthday. Mistakes anniversary. The best of me. What's left of me. Momentum breathes. A wisp of wind. So you don't hit your knees. Just a peek in your rear view. You've been gathering speed. Smell the brakes burning. Only you know what you need. A sigh of relief. A sense of grief. Momentum moves mountains. Passing doubt. Just believe. You're either in or you're out. No use crying about what could be, what once was, what's happening now. Stiffen your lip, flatten your brow. Now is importance. Worries are intolerance. Leave that for tomorrow. A sip of uncertainty, a sprinkle of sorrow. Momentum conjectures, something blue, something borrowed. Trepidatious traditions, yelling at the clouds, hoping that God is listening. Momentum evokes confidence, a sense of conviction, a hole in your soul, shards of heart on the ground. Knowing just what is missing, polarity and gravity, hand in hand, on the ballroom floor. Momentum tips its hat, gets ready for more. It's not the fall, it's a sudden stop, like a rewardless chore. Momentum yawning, buried, believing. That's quite a bore. Hitting snooze as you snore, momentum persists. 5 fingers united, ironclad iron fist. Momentum with a quill, writing a laundry list of lessons learned. Sometimes you forget. Momentum reminders, clarity commencing on a clear target. Can't force what don't fit. Have you starting again, momentum takes 2 fingers, placed below your chin. Lifts you, eye to eye. Stories end where they begin. Confused convictions, no participation trophy. Sometimes you lose or you win. A gag in your mouth, toes tapping a tightrope. Momentum salivating salvation. A balance beam of hope. Curiously condensing, building beads of contemplation. Let's face it, back to basics. Momentum, your new best friend. Patting the pain of the past. If you ain't first, you're last. A checkpoint, a beacon. All things come to pass. Life's too short for crying, so you might as well laugh. Chapter 14. The Ultimate Test. Staying calm in a world of noise. Woo-wee, boy, howdy. You still breathing over there? Maybe you're listening to the audiobook and we can do some kind of osmosis in the afterlife and let this seep into all eternity? No? Too demanding? Still working on that part? Oh, right. You are still listening to the book. Give it a moment to process? Got it. I mean, I did just say all that. I'm a writer, not a professor of telepathy. I just want this information to be in the ethos of existence. I mean, in Imagine, John Lennon did tell us, and the world can live as one. Lennon also told us, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. In Beautiful Boy. This is the thing of it, though. Universal connectivity doesn't have to be the realm of fantasy. Living as one is not science fiction. It is accessible. It is real. Quantum physics shows us this empirically, that we are all connected, that everything is connected. Almost all the chatter and chaos is harmony. A dimension of peace that exists where dystopia becomes utopia, and not like Lewis Lowry's The Giver utopia where we're all robots, and have the same haircut and wear robes while we eat sludge as nutrition. A crevasse where we all fit and aren't tripping over and stumbling over each other. Where Kumbaya plays over mall speakers into the hearts of newborns. This is possible. The sound we generate in this life echo through the halls of eternity. So we might as well speak slowly and not scream into the abyss. Waves connect everything. Gravitational waves, light waves, gamma waves, microwaves, and sound waves. The ripples in the fabric of space-time have been here long before us, will be here long after us, and are us. Ocean waves are so appealing because it is the only medium in nature where we can see a wave in action. We can't see gravitational waves. We can't see gamma waves. We can't see microwaves. We can see light waves, but the light we see are from stars that are billions of years old. The light we see from the sun, our closest star. Did you know that? Of course you knew that. You're smart and listening to books. Is 8 minutes and 20 seconds old by the time it enters our life. Perspective is important in understanding. A light year is not a measure of time, it is a unit of distance. The noise we hear among the carnivorous chasm that is society is able to be stilled. We are able to find a love at first sight slowdown when we quiet our minds. When we utilize the Buddha's principles all throughout this book in a toolbox we carry around, not unlike the baggage that we all come with. We don't need to have a luggage set. There are dresser drawers, and the toolbox need only carry the essentials. We do not need to add weight to that already heavy existence of whatever version of the simulation in which we reside. Quiet your mind. Control what you can. We have no way to control if others understand us. We have no way to change the mind of someone else. We have no way to do anything but decide how we are going to interpret and ingest our circumstances. Pain will always be hanging around. That's what pain does. It is there to remind us life is not without struggle and sorrow. That what we are, who we will be, is always in need of adjustment, repair, and more so maintenance. When you find something that works for you, that calms your mind, keep your foot on the gas. Make those epiphanies and enlightenment staples of your day to grow the roots Myron Golden spoke of. It's really not all that complicated, folks. The best things in life are free. What we give, we get. The point is connection. There's no way around it, and no need to resist it. Connection to the atoms we are, the atoms another is, the molecules molding the universe. We are the nucleus. That's what seems to have been misunderstood along the way. We are the glue that binds us, that connects the universe and keeps it strung like a fancy pearl necklace. Get the point? Oh man, that is like my best lead-in yet. Also, this next poem is a double entendre, the point of life and the finger which we point at ourselves. I'm starting to think I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I should be a writer. The point, July 8th, 2024. What's the point when you only have so many hours to live? Waiting for your number in the deli line, tally marks under a bridge. So busy we literally forget to breathe, wandering aimless down a golden road where real riches are free. Hard to believe, life's vastness, a rocky coast, peppered with turbulent seas. Experimental experience elevating exponentially. The when, why, what, then, how am I, who are you? Cracked magnets connecting in the cracks of a canyon. Sweaty yoga mats and ice baths. First to get picked, the last to laugh. The final word, ornate narration. Dangerous diction, day jobbing is determined dictation. Losing patience like a grain of salt, strewn about the sand. Scabs and scars, a lesson learned about becoming a man. A single tear shed, not a result of being weak, but being strong for too long. Muted lyrics with your favorite song, a sweet salesman on his way to persuade the tooth decay. The point, it's all wrong. Watching second tick, eyes move from the wall to your wrist. The truth is, look around. This is it. The point can be a dull dart that won't penetrate the board. Convalescent confessions, consistent second guesses. The point is, there's no grade on the final of life's lessons. Conclusion. No further questions. You made it! Tell me, what does it feel like to be a completely actualized member of society ready to take on any and all challenges? Oh, you don't know yet? Right, you're still listening. I want to thank you for taking this journey with me through the caves and canals of despair. I'm feeling emotional right now, like when I listened to Britney Spears' Stronger. Gets me every time. Hold on. Just give me a second. Let's remind ourselves that we're not on the Death Star, but flying those Luke Skywalker aircraft things. I never really got into Star Wars. I know. Blasphemy, blah, blah, blah. You already listened to the book. Let's cry a river, build a bridge, and get over it, shall we? Caressing the canyons within inches of our lives, but coming out just fine. I'll hold your hand, you hold mine, and we're going to Red Rover stupidity into a cavalcade of Burning Man enlightenment. Hey, you holding? I'm all out. Bummer. Integrate these principles into your life the best you can. Just keep trying your best, and each day will get better. Some days will still meet regression. Remember the Dharma, keep it present in your mind. There is no sunshine without rain, and everyone's entitled to a bad day every now and then. Whether you feel entitled or not, we will all still have them. Weather the storm like the champions you are. Participation trophies hold no merit, but if we are all participating, we all get the gold. Out of the darkness and into the light. There's no need to cower where darkness hides. Boom! Leaving you with another winner of a lead-in. You didn't think I'd stumble here before the finish line, did you? Darkness hides. January 23rd, 2025. My mind is weak, my heart is strong. In dark there's light, the curtain's drawn. Life is the music, but you're the song. Never is not where you find where hope holds on. The road is long, but you have all the time. Loving yourself is what's truly divine. Your brain is God. 2 rights, 1 wrong. We do not find what we seek. It finds us on its own. A memory and a photo. The ability to let go. The toolbox that allows you to find meaning in the sorrow. These are what we are given, but too scared to go find. Unknown and in uncertainty is where darkness hides. Well, a lion's mane is part of a lion's roar. What we consider fluff? Oh no, that's the good stuff. Sometimes you twist your ankle when the road's this tough. Where are you going? What's the rush? Anywhere is walking distance if you have the time. You don't need a beacon. You are the light. Life's too short not to play. Go everywhere, even where darkness hides. Be kind to yourself and others. Namaste.